Chapter 21. In everyone's incredible eyes, Charlie slowly stood up. The eyes of the entire banquet hall focused on him in an instant. "Charlie, what are you doing?" "Sit down," Elaine quickly reminded him in fright. He didn't look at what occasion it was. There are so many big men present, none of them dared to stand up. Charlie is a wasteful son-in-law. What makes him think the limelight at this time is for him? Fred and Gerald also glanced at each other, secretly saying in their hearts, D*MN, the chairman of the Emgrand Group would really be him, right? But then, the two shook their heads again. Impossible, if he is really the chairman of Emgrand, how could he be scolded by Elaine? "What are you rubbish? Sit down in your place," Harold shouted from the stage with a dark face. Charlie glanced at him coldly, then walked straight to Doris Young, completely ignoring everyone's horrified gaze, and whispered a few words in her ear. While listening, Doris Young nodded slightly. This scene made everyone's heart tighten instantly. Doris Young, the vice chairman of Emgrand Group, the famous beauty of Aurus Hill City. Charlie, a wasteful son-in-law, how could he know her? And looking like this, the relationship between the two seems pretty good. After speaking, Charlie stepped out of the hall regardless of everyone's gaze, focused on him. He went out to chase Claire. But Doris Young stood up, stepped onto the stage, took the microphone, and said in the blank eyes of everyone, "Hello everyone, this is Doris Young. Mr. Charlie was outside the venue before and met our chairman. He brought me a world." When everyone heard that Charlie was not the chairman of Emgrand, they were relieved. Fred White breathed a sigh of relief and whispered disdainfully, "It's just that he met someone once, so he tried desperately to cheat on the assistant. It's really rubbish." Gerald White shrugged and said with a smile, "This is how the little guy is." At this time, Doris Young on the stage glanced at Mrs. Wilson, her face turned cold. "The chairman asked me to inform you. From now on, Emgrand Group terminates its cooperation with Wilson's, and the signed contract is declared invalid." Boom! The crowd exploded in an instant, and no one expected that Doris Young would say such a thing. This sudden change made everyone stunned. Old Mrs. Wilson paled instantly and asked eagerly, "Dear Vice Chair, what is this? Is there anything in our Wilson family that is wrong?" Today, she invited all the people in Aurora Hill with good repute, hoping to take this opportunity to become famous in Aurus Hill. If under all the eyes of everyone, the Wilson family would be stepped on the soles of their feet if they cooperated. Doris Young said, "This project was originally our chairman's approval of Ms. Claire before cooperating with you, but you made your own claim and asked an inexplicable person to take charge of this project. Sorry, we don't accept it." After speaking, Doris Young put down the microphone and walked out the door without looking back. Old Mrs. Wilson's face was pale, and she slumped on the stage for an instant. She never dreamed that her momentary cleverness would have ruined this golden opportunity for good. Had she known this situation a long time ago, she would not have allowed Harold to replace Claire's directorship. Harold was also very at a loss this time. What's the matter? It seems that Doris Young deliberately targeted him, and he did not even offend her. Harold couldn't help asking the old Mrs. Wilson, "Grandma, the director's appointment has been announced. You won't regret it." Old Mrs. Wilson struggled to stand up, raised her hand and slapped him, angrily scolded, "B***starred stuff, you still don't want to miss the directorship, even at such a time." Chapter 22. After Charlie went out, he realized that Claire hadn't gone far, just squatting in an unmanned corner next to the hotel, crying aggrievedly. He slowly approached, took off his coat, put on Claire, and said, "My wife, don't be sad, the director of the Wilson family is not a treasure, no matter it's inappropriate for your family to treat you like that. You don't understand, if I become the director, my parents will be able to raise their eyes in the Wilson family. How can Grandma turn back?" Claire whimpered. Charlie continued to persuade, "Maybe they will have to come and beg you to be the director. You are crying like this now, and you won't look pretty after a while on stage." Claire choked and said, "How is it possible? Grandma has said everything, and there will be no chance of turning back. Leave me, let me be alone." At this moment, Mrs. Wilson and Harold also ran out of the banquet hall. The Lady Wilson was too old and out of breath when she ran. A large group of people behind her came out to watch the scene in excitement. After Harold came out, he saw Charlie and Claire. He ran forward quickly, looked down at Claire with dim eyes, and blurted out, "Claire, hurry up and chase Miss Doris. Let her not terminate cooperation with us." Claire looked blank. Terminate cooperation? Why? Harold said angrily, "You are here pretending to be innocent. You must have instructed Miss Doris to embarrass me publicly. If you don't settle this matter for me, I can't spare you." Snapped. The old Mrs. Wilson, who was on the side, slapped Harold angrily again and said, "You be at start. How can you talk to your sister like that? She is the director of our Wilson Group." Harold was anxious. "Didn't Grandma chose me as the director?" The old Mrs. Wilson said angrily, "If you hadn't given me ecstasy, how could I change my mind temporarily? If you continue to be reluctant, get out of the Wilson family." After being smoked twice by the Lady Wilson, Harold was extremely angry, but he dared not speak, so he could only swallow his anger temporarily. The old Mrs. Wilson said to Claire again at this time, "Claire, Grandma begs you, you are now the director of the Wilson family. Hurry up and explain to Miss Doris, otherwise, our Wilson family will be in ruins." Claire looked at Charlie blankly with doubts. Charlie shrugged and said, "I told you, they have to come and beg you to be the director in a while. You didn't believe me. Look, your face is all messed up." Claire blushed, wiped her tears, and said, "Then I will try to contact Emgrand." After speaking, she dialed Doris Young's phone. Everyone's eyes focused on her. After a while, the phone was connected, and Claire said, "Hello, Miss Doris. Grandma asked me to explain to you, I will be promoted to the director of the Wilson family, responsible for the cooperation with Emgrand. Can you give us another chance?" Doris Young chuckled and said, "If you are the director and can take the charge, then there is no problem. The cooperation can continue, but if it is someone else, everything stays at the current status." "Miss Doris, thank you so much." Claire was always puzzled about this matter in her heart. From beginning to end, the Emgrand Group seemed to be here entirely to help her, which was too abnormal. Doris Young said with a smile, "This is what our chairman meant. If there is a chance in the future, the chairman will explain it to you personally." Claire was even more puzzled. Who was the chairman of the other party, and she had never seen him? Why did the other party help him everywhere? Then, "Can you please return to the banquet hall again?" Claire asked nervously. The other party had left with anger, obviously irritated by the Wilson family. At this time, asking the other party to come back is a bit difficult. But she didn't expect that Doris Young agreed resolutely. Soon everyone saw that Doris Young's car had returned to the door of the hotel. At this moment, everyone looked at Claire's gaze, all filled with horror and awe.